And we're off. Hey, everyone. Episode 460 of the All Dolphins podcast. Friday, February 28th, 2025. The last day of February. We hop into March. Day of my birthday, my wife's birthday, our wedding anniversary. But that all in one. Joined today by Dave Hyde, award-winning columnist from the South Florida Sun Sentinel, author of the book Still Perfect. There you go. Stories of the 1972 Miami Dolphins, which is an excellent book still available on Amazon. Check it out, Dave Hyde. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Doing great. I'm sitting here in Miami looking at all the news from Indianapolis, which not a lot of Dolphin news. A little, but mostly other teams, right?
Mostly other teams and a lot of stuff going on around the league, including a major QB domino falling, or in this place staying upright, that being Matthew Stafford remaining with the Los Angeles Rams after scuttlebutt that he could wind up with the New York Giants or the Las Vegas Raiders. Now what happens with the Giants? With talk that maybe they're going to go after, this one's too good, Aaron Rodgers.
Don't believe it.
You're not buying it?
I it just doesn't seem a fit, right? They're not ready to win. New York's tired of Aaron Rodgers, I would imagine. There's a lot of things that just don't seem to work there. I would think he's got to go to a place that can win now, and then again, for $50 million, he might go to the Giants.
Correct. None. I'm trying to think. There's not necessarily a ton of like the Rams would have been a great fit for him had they moved on from Stafford. That's out of the question. If the 49ers decide they're not going to pay Brock Purdy and move on from him, and based on what John Lynch has said and what's coming out of San Francisco, that's not the way it's working. They're going to give him an extension. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's a different story. I mean, who's left for the dude?
If you can work around the money, which I don't think you can in Cleveland, that'd be an interesting fit. There's the Raiders. Matt Stafford's Tom Brady's out there looking for a quarterback, and they're of the same generation. So I mean, and then there's the old retirement bug too. So
yeah,
there are teams needing a quarterback still.
Yeah, somebody my eyes are looking weird from this angle. Somebody pointed this out to me that Tom Brady is not doing particularly well at the plate so far, as the Raiders wanted Josh McDaniels, didn't get him, wanted Ben Johnson as the head coach, didn't get him, and now wanted Matthew Stafford, and wound up going skiing with him, or however that thing played out, and didn't get him either. So who knows what's going to happen. As far as the Dolphins are concerned in terms of the quarterback, it's basically who's going to be the backup, veteran or draft pick. I think we can all agree, can we not, Dave Hyde, that the backup number 2 quarterback needs to be a veteran?
Yeah, I mean, we can agree with that. I get that. Now, if I'm the Dolphins, I do the homework on these 2 high draft picks and consider. I have a conversation at the table on Shedeur Sanders. What if he falls? What are we going to do? I don't think it'll happen, but you got to have that conversation. You got to have that conversation if you're the Dolphins, because you have seen the importance of the position. But yeah, all signs point and logic points to a veteran, a Marcus Mariota type of veteran.
Okay. Yeah, and the quarterbacks, we'll get back to the veterans, but the quarterbacks spoke at the combine today. Was press conference day for them, the running backs and the wide receivers. And I tried to dance around a couple of the different podiums to hear what the guys had to say. And even if you were to drop to 13, I mean, as a talent, I think the Dolphins would be crazy not to jump on Shedeur Sanders. He's not going to stay till 13.
No, but things happen, so who knows?
Right. But he's just, my Lord, is this guy difficult to warm up to? I mean, it's and this is old Canadian, humble, modest me, who likes my running backs like Barry Sanders. When he got into the end zone, scored a touchdown, whether it be from 5 yards out or 75 yards out. Here you go, Mr. Official, take the ball, as opposed to doing all this attention-seeking stuff. And Shedeur Sanders is so insanely off-putting, and I have zero issue with confident players, but when you cross a line to becoming cocky and me, and this is what he is, which unfortunately which is impossible not to have happen when your father's Deion Sanders, who was one of the most electrifying, best players of all time in the NFL, except he just would never miss an opportunity to tell you how great he was.
I love covering divas. What? So how did Cam Ward come off? How did Cam Ward come off?
Cam Ward comes off as confident but not respectful. I'll give you an example. Shedeur Sanders is asked about, because Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders trained together before the combine, and the question was like, what stands out to you about Cam Ward? And Shedeur says, "I'm only here to speak about myself."
Yeah.
Like really.
Look, I would be stunned, and I'm probably going to write this for Sunday in my column. Cam Ward will be the number one pick. I mean, we can go through all these machinations of, tearing apart his game and talking about the defensive players who are great and all that, but it comes down to need, position, and talent. And look, I saw a lot of Cam Ward at Miami, and there's what you want in a quarterback, right? From the skill set to just his leadership in how he won over that team by saying all the right things, saying everything you would want a quarterback to say to a team that needed leadership. And remember, that's the third college team he's been on, and he's done it everywhere. And I'd be stunned if Tennessee doesn't take him. They'll be trading the pick, and somebody will be taking Cam Ward.
Yeah, and that's another part of the scuttlebutt with the Giants, is that maybe they move up from 3 to 1, and the Titans accumulate some assets to make the move down 2 spots. Look, if you're going best player, it's Travis Hunter. You can maybe you could have thrown in Abdul Carter in there. I know Daniel Jeremiah, that would be his guy. Okay, maybe one of those 2 guys. The Abdul Carter foot injury notwithstanding, but quarterbacks always go. I mean, this.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, and I think that it's set up for that, and I really like Cam Ward's game. He's got the arm, he's got the escapability. He likes to stay in the pocket, but if he has to get out, he will get out of it, and he can run and create plays. He's pretty much everything you want in an NFL quarterback, right down to at 5:00 in the morning, he's meeting Xavier Restrepo every morning at UM's campus, and they're working out together. And, when you're working, Xavier Restrepo is a harder worker, as I've seen. We've only seen Cam Ward for 1 season. But the fact that they're paired together, that tells you something about each of them.
Yeah. To me, the only negative you can put on Ward is he tends to be maybe a little loose with the football. Sometimes he takes some unnecessary chances, but would you rather have somebody who's going to go the safe route all the time and not make those crazy plays? Because he's got a stupidly live arm. The poise under pressure is ridiculous. To me, at times, watching him last year at UM, it was like somebody standing in the middle of I-95 in downtown Miami at rush hour traffic with cars whizzing by and basically reading a book, not having a care in the world. It was weird. I'd never seen anybody like that. It was very, very weird to me.
Yeah. And Miami fell short last year, but it wasn't for lack of offense. It was the defense. If you followed the season, they had to score every possession to win those games at the end of the year against like Syracuse, and so I didn't know anything about Cam Ward heading into last year. I remember talking to Dennis Erickson over the phone, and he brought him up. He goes, "Have you seen Cam Ward play?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "He's the real thing. He's the real," because he watched him at Washington State. He lives out in Idaho, and so he's won coast to coast. He's won people over,
without question. Okay, with the Dolphins, if they are going to draft a quarterback, it's not. We can pretty much say it's not going to be Ward or Sanders. Could be anyone else. Could be on the table as a possibility. Whether it be Jackson Dart, Tyler Schuff, I believe I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. It's Shough. By all means, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, por favor. While you're liking and subscribing and getting me to 15,000K, please. Also, Dylan Gabriel's another one. And then Jalen Milroe's another one. He was very, very impressive. And I spoke to the 3 of those at the podium speak, me and 50 other reporters, but I was at their media sessions. Dylan Gabriel, I asked him very specifically, I won't tell you any secrets you don't already know, that your game's been compared to Tua quite a bit, both lefties, both from Hawaii, both short, both like very accurate passers, and what he thought about the comparison. And it was one of those deals where Gabriel was kind of like, yeah, no, I'm Dylan Gabriel, talking about like he can see the comparisons because of what I mentioned, the lefty thing, but that if you study their game, there are differences, and there are differences, but they are subtle. There are a lot more similarities. It's been out there in certain national outlets that he'd be a target for the Dolphins. Jalen Milroe, I think, has got very good upside from Alabama. The skills are there. I think the consistency as a passer is not quite there yet. But I think if you're looking, again, ceiling versus NFL readiness or floor, he is very intriguing to me. So I guess my question to you then, what do you think the likelihood is of the Dolphins spending a draft pick on a quarterback, and how early would you think it could happen?
I think they have to. I think that the whole quarterback room needs to be made over. They need not only a veteran to come in for all the reasons we saw last year when Tua got hurt and the season, needed a lifeline. But they need to groom somebody. And even if the guy doesn't become a starter, groom to be a backup so you're not spending $10 million on a backup every year. So where do they go? I would think, assuming, again, they don't get either of the first two, because I don't think that'll ever happen. But, 3, 4, New England did the right thing last year. They got the starter, then they got fascinating, a wild card. No one even knows still what to make of them, but you like what you saw. Okay, all the possibilities there. If they can, it's like a wild horse. Can you harness that? And that's what you're looking for in a young guy. A lot of upside. Because he's going to sit for a year, 2 years, who knows? But you're going to have a chance to work with them and bend them to what this offense. Here's my question before I'm hesitating on say where they're going to pick a quarterback and who's it going to be. Are they going to make over this offense? Are they going to get 2 power running guards? And
I doubt it, but maybe.
Because you asked this question before, and I hadn't thought of it on Slowick. Why'd they hire him? They hired him, I think, is more I think about it, and is to answer some questions Mike has about this offense that he couldn't answer last year. Bringing in a new set of eyes, fresh set of mind. It's a good hire in that regard to say, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to do? Warren Sharp came out with a stat that the Dolphins had it was a fascinating stat, the least success by a long shot on 3rd and 4th downs running the ball up the middle. And so they're going to get 2 guards. What kind of guards are they going to get will go, to me, a long way toward telling me, are they going to change some of this offense? Are they going to – you don't think so, huh?
No, I don't. I think they're too invested. They have too much financial commitment to their core guys who are basically all track guys. And this is going to bleed into a column you wrote. But no, I have a hard time seeing it. It's tough to make over again when who are your 3 biggest playmakers on offense? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane.
Yeah.
They're all speed guys. I don't know that you can make. Oh, and the point I wanted to make with Joe Milton is I gave the Dolphins and Chris Greer the benefit of the doubt. That's not the right term. I made some allowances because they took a lot of crap for trading a 2 and a 5 for Josh Rosen that year. And my point on that was it's easy after the fact to bitch about the move because it clearly didn't work out because Josh Rosen, while he had some physical traits, never wanted to put in the time to get good. Also had a little bit of I know it better than everybody else issue. So in retrospect, horrible trade. To me, it's like, okay, but I have a hard time criticizing an organization that hasn't had a quarterback for such a long time to, give it a shot, try it. Well, if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to throw darts at the Dolphins for not doing that last year at a much lower price when in the 5th round, instead of taking Mohamed Kamara from Colorado State, who, while having good pass rushing traits, was not necessarily a lock as a prospect, you could have taken Joe Milton, who everybody knew and could see at Tennessee was really, really big, could move, and had a ridiculous joke of an arm.
I completely agree with you, and I felt went right in that trap with Josh Rosen too. I thought this is what good organizations try to do. You take a shot on a guy who was a top 10th pick the year before, and assuming you liked him in the draft, you take a chance. And they blew it twice. That not only they trade for him, then they didn't play him. And they played Fitzpatrick, who won in just enough games so that's a whole different subject.
Joe Burrow. Yeah.
Let's not go down that wormhole. But I completely agree with you. They do not take enough chances on quarterbacks to me. You got to take one every year. A 5th round pick on a Milton. Try to find somebody like that every year. And if it doesn't work out, what are you really missing out on? And the value of that position, and I'm at the Jimmy Johnson camp. Who, look, remember he going back, he had Troy Aikman, and he drafted Steve Walsh #1 in the supplemental. And people said, "You're an idiot. What are you doing?" And he said he wanted competition. He said, you look at his moves through all his career, right to the Dolphins, where he made sure he had a good backup quarterback. The point being that the backup quarterback's the second most important guy on your team. You just saw why last season with the Dolphins.
Yeah, just about. No, I don't want to revisit the 2019 and the fiasco that was going from Josh Rosen back to Ryan Fitzpatrick in the starting lineup, which made zero sense on so many levels.
Yeah.
I do want to clarify something, because to this day, I still see it in comments on social media that people get it wrong. The Dolphins did not blow the #1 pick when they beat Cincinnati in the next to last week of the season.
No.
The Dolphins came into that game with 2 more wins. With 2 more wins than Cincinnati. Even had they lost, Cincinnati would have had to win their season finale against Cleveland, and the Dolphins would have had to lose at New England, which they wind up not doing. Perhaps they wouldn't have tried as hard had the #1 pick been on the line. What it did, the loss is clinched the #1 pick for the Bengals in that next to last week of the regular season, 38-35 in overtime. But had the Dolphins won, they wouldn't have clinched anything. They still would have needed things to happen the right way in week 18 or week 17 at the time. And then they could have gotten Joe Burrow with the first overall pick, because by that time, I think he had surpassed Tua as the #1 prospect because of that ridiculous.
I still remember the season finale in New England, walking in the locker room. There's Stephen Ross and his entourage. They were in the locker room. And it looked, the Dolphins won the game. Remember, that's Ryan Fitzpatrick picked up, was it Devontae Parker and like a horse and ran him off the field in victory celebration. Walk in the locker room, and there's Stephen Ross and entourage looking like they're at a funeral. I mean, it was the worst loss ever, because now they, to your point, they'd already lost the #1 pick, but this just cemented. Well, we're not even, now we're down to 5. And so, anyways, move on. That's ancient history, but I want to give that little scene setter.
Correct. As it turned out, they got the quarterback they wanted. So back to my other point, because you're talking about the potential transformation of the offense, which I suspect not going to happen. Maybe I'm wrong. Been wrong before. We'll be wrong again. It certainly would be easier to start the transformation if Tyreek Hill was no longer on the roster. And I know somebody who looks a lot like you and writes for the Sun Sentinel wrote a column this week suggesting that's exactly what the Dolphins should do.
Done with it. I'm done. I'm let's go. Let's move on. The asset allocation is wrong. Look, you drafted Waddle too. Waddle's kind of a forgotten man here. He's like, is it because he's not being used? Is he not as good? But 6th pick in the draft between Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell, 2 guys tracking certainly for the All-Decade team, possibly if they keep this going for the Hall of Fame. And there he is in the middle. You need more from him. You need more. But back to Tyreek. asset allocation is wrong. You have two of the highest paid, seven highest paid receivers, and they're 30th and 44th in receiving yards last year. You have a constant problem. Guy late to meetings, and I was told that's 10% of the issues they deal with. There's a lot more that I don't know about that's behind the scenes. You see some of it in the weekly, almost weekly issues with him. And then to top it off, they got a next year, meaning next offseason at this time, if the Dolphins keep him, his salary cap number is $51.8 million, meaning you got to redo that contract again, kick the can down the line at age 32. How far are you going to kick it down? Because so you're facing a lot of issues here that when I add them all up, I say, just move on at this point. Move on and get your culture back, which I think is the number one thing that Mike McDaniel has to do. He's got to get a grip on this team, on just the day-to-day discipline that good teams go through. And it's not, Tyreek wasn't the only one late to practice. He wasn't the only one with sloppy work habits. And now on the field, Tyreek is a beast. He can be a beast. And so if you want to say we got to keep him for that reason, I understand where you're coming from. But when I add it all up, I say, let's move on. What can you get for him? Second round pick, third round pick, probably second and a fifth, and you trade a sixth. I know there were whispers with Washington wanting somebody like that. I'm ready.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know. My stance all along has been that, again, we're not privy to everything that's going on behind the scenes. As you mentioned, just being late to meetings was only part of it. If the Dolphins have deemed it that they're at a point where it's more detrimental to have it on the team than not, then I guess. But again, they're not a better team on the field. The product's not going to be better without him than with him. It's just, that's why it's a very tricky situation.
It's a tricky. You got to make good. I hear what you're saying. To me, having these two receivers when you can't get them the ball. Now, is that, and I'm not blaming Tyreek for that. That's the scheme, the offense, the fit. But you get rid of these two great receivers. You get a couple good receivers, because you're going to need a third receiver, because as we all know, Odell Beckham Jr., you talk about another flame out, another problem, another bad decision. And you move those resources elsewhere. You got a lot of holes. Everybody's, oh, no, they need Bradley Chubb back. Well, do you realize how many holes you have to fill and the expense of filling these holes? I get everybody wants everybody back, but you're going to have to make some tough decisions this offseason just to get the money to fill out a lineup card.
Without question. No, and the thing, going back to Waddle as the sixth pick, Waddle's a good receiver. If somebody were to call him a very good receiver, I'm good with that. But he's not transformative, generational like Jamar Chase was, even though Dolphins gave up the chance to pick him when they moved from 3 to 12. Like Jamar Chase or like Penei Sewell is as an offensive tackle. And even beyond that, Micah Parsons was picked 12th in that draft. Rashawn Slater, who's a tremendous offensive tackle, who could have prevented the need to sign Teron Armstead, as much as we love Teron Armstead, went 11, I believe it was, and he is like a perennial Pro Bowl player. Devontae Smith, who I would make the argument is probably around the same level as Waddle, went to 10. So that was part of the problem. And it was part of the problem, that part of why the rebuild hasn't produced as well as it could have, because they made some maybe decent picks, good picks, but no home runs were hit in that 2020 and 2021 drafts.
And just to carry that out a little further, I might have mentioned this another show. When the Dolphins traded from 12th, remember they had the third pick, they trade back to 12th.
I remember. Yes.
Yeah, and everybody remembers. And Philadelphia, they traded with Philadelphia to 12th. Philadelphia got 2 number 1 picks. They moved up to 10th with a third round pick.
Yep.
But then with that, so they take Devontae Smith, and then with the other first round pick that the Dolphins had, they take Jordan Davis, a
Mhm.
beast on their defensive line, and that's how you make smart moves and have smart architecture to win Super Bowls. But back to Jalen, I think there's more there. There has to be more there, and I get back to I tell us there's a story that Chambers,
Chris Chambers.
the Dolphins receiver, I'm drawing a
Chris
blank.
Chambers.
Yes, Chris
Yeah.
Chambers. Thank you. Chris Chambers tells when Nick Saban came in, and Chambers, he's in and out, he's up and down, and Nick Saban sits him down. He says, "You're the one guy who has to show up every week and play and produce. We need you to produce. We have other options at the other positions if somebody has an off week. You can't have off weeks." And Chris Chambers I've talked to him about it. He said, that lit something in me where, and that was Nick Saban's gift. He brought something out. And Chris Chambers went on and had a career
He did.
year. And
2005.
and that's the talk they needed. Jalen, we need more from you. We know what's in there. That's why we took you 6. That's why we paid you all this money. And we got to get that out of you. You got to get it out of yourself. Every week we're counting on you. Now it's easy when he's the second option and oh yeah, well the play's going elsewhere but I think they just need to put more responsibility on his plate.